Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot, I put that on everything.
Craig.
So on your senior night, there he was. You reject Noah Williams. Pestering your 5-star guy. 15-6 without the hype. He claimed the city after he won. You're not his type. Not his type.
I have no idea what that is.
It's a song called Reject from Green Day. I cannot do a Billy Joe
Oh, yeah.
voice.
Come on. You got.
I tried. Believe me, I practiced before, but none of them were good enough to unveil.
That's a really tough voice to emulate.
Like, I guess I could have
voices that you could
plug
do
my nose or something, and I don't know.
Like,
you kind of sing.
I don't know.
You
like,
got to sing like from the back of your throat.
Yeah.
And like with your
that's
tongue
true.
over, like with the tongue on the top of your mouth.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah. I mean, I think didn't he? He probably had like a tongue piercing or something that was also like,
yeah,
impeding his ability to,
enunciate.
Yeah. I don't know. God,
Yeah.
they've been around. Sometimes I forget how long they've been around too.
Yeah, that song that's from Nimrod, and that was like their that was like their third album or so. I think so.
I just remember they had their the one song about was it Longview? Is that what they called it? No, it's not. They called it Longview. What was the name of the song? Their first like breakthrough song.
The song was called Longview.
Was it called Longview? Okay, I was like, right, and then it was because he lived in Longview for a brief time, and it was like the most boring ass place he ever lived. And, and I remember they had to bleep out the word masturbation on the end, and that was really funny to like 17-year-old me or 18-year-old me, however old I was when that song came out. So, yeah, well, hey, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, welcome to Podcast versus Everyone. I am piss poor.
It's like, wait, did you forget who you
Billy
were?
Joe Armstrong impersonator, Craig Powers.
As we've already established, everybody's a piss poor impersonator of that guy.
Oh, I'm sure there's some good ones, but and with me is Jeff Newser. We're all out here.
Also, not a good impersonator.
Yeah, we're all out here trying our best to survive the outbreak.
That's right.
Buying hand sanitizer on the black market.
They closed 2 schools in my district today. Junior high and an elementary school. Oh boy. Here we go.
Woohoo.
Batten down the hatches. Well, I know I said on Slack, like whatever it was at the end of last week, I was like, yeah, it's going to end up in my school somehow, some way at some point. And apparently Washington State is ground zero for coronavirus in the U.S. So it's only a matter of time since I work in a petri dish.
Well, and my partner works in a hospital, so let's have fun,
another petri dish.
Yeah.
Yay.
Woohoo.
And it's like, it doesn't matter how they're like, wash your hands. And it's like, you know what? I mean,
wash your hands anyway.
Yeah. But there are just some places where you work where it just don't matter. Like, it just does not matter what you do. It doesn't, because you're just, there's too many germs floating around, and it just does not matter. So.
All right. So now that we've reminded you of some scary parts of the world, let's talk about the fun things, like our Cougs taking down UW in
again
that hot, miserable facility known as Heckhead, Alaska Airlines Arena.
Were you sitting up near the top?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
that's where it's like super hot.
Yeah, it was like 100 degrees. I'm not even exaggerating.
Yeah, it gets ridiculous.
I was up in Seattle all day, and we had went to the zoo and stuff, and then it was on my workout plan to run 12 miles, so I ran 12 miles around Green Lake, and then I went to the Y in the U District and took a shower. Realized I forgot deodorant, So, cheers to my seatmates.
Every high five was like,
who endured me in that sauna. All the high fives, all the stress sweating to go along with it, which is the smelliest of the sweat.
And it was stressful.
It was a stressful game. I mean, nothing is more stressful than having a big lead at halftime.
Because it's coming. Like
you knew we were going to have a long drought because we do every single game.
Because we just do.
And you knew UW was going to make a run because they're at home and because it's a college basketball game. And WSU is not good enough to just blow out a team.
Nope.
So
not on the road anyway.
Not on the road especially, So, but man, what a game.
It was.
Really cool to sweep the Huskies and to do it on their senior night. And it wasn't just their senior night. They probably got a couple other guys that are leaving too.
Right, at least two.
At least two. And then, just to send them out. And as Pat Chun said, and we'll talk about this a little later, Pat Chun said at the night with Cougar Football, UW has a couple one and dones that may go on to do great things in the NBA, win championships or whatever. But one thing they'll never get to say is that they beat the Cougs, and so that's pretty great. Pretty great for guys like CJ and Noah, who grew up watching UW and following UW and in their city and both. At least Noah got an offer from UW that probably was kind of a backup sort of offer, but it's great to see. Great to see how much fun they have with it. Them getting to pose in front of the Space Needle on the UW court after posing in front of the Space Needle on the WSU court. Noah screaming, "This is my city." Well, and then saying it before he knocks down the free throw to ice the game, and then screaming it after.
He's got this look like, "I'm not nervous. This is my city," and it's like, "Oh, I love you."
He just buries it.
Yeah, both of them. And let's be honest, he's not been the best free throw shooter this year.
Yeah.
So it was a little dicey, thinking, okay, well, but in that game he was. He was
9 of
6
10.
for 6. Yeah, 9 of 10. There we go. I know he was 6 of 6 in the first half, and then made the last two. So then he split the other two, I guess, earlier in the half. And 9 of 10's pretty good deal.
15 points on 4 field goal attempts.
Yeah, you got that. That's pretty efficient. You got to like that.
Only 1 turnover.
Yeah, he had
6 boards. Yeah.
It's that was that, man. I watched it. So as you know, I watched it after I came home from taking my youngest son to his first wrestling match. So that was on Friday night, and I was had avoided everything until I got home, and really, and it was funny, no matter how hard I try to avoid things until I get home, I always get something. Somebody sends me a text message. It's like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, like, "Stop it," And so that happened right at the beginning of the second half when, it turned out they didn't score for about, 10 minutes, it seemed like. And I was like, no. And so like, I'm kind of watching. So as I'm watching the meltdown in the second half, I'm thinking, okay, this is what people texted me about. And then I, put my phone away. And so to see it turn out, I just kept waiting for it to just go all the way south, and it didn't. It was pretty awesome, man. Having Isaac Bonton back, and with the things that he can do, and other than the turnovers, but that was.
I think those were all on him. Personally,
no, not all of them. Yeah, not all of them. So a lot of them were. Some of it was strategy based too. Like they obviously were making a really concerted effort to, to work the short corner, to work the high post.
It was a tough pass to make that short corner from the top of the key pass.
Yep, it's got to be a great pass, and they nailed it a few times, and then other times they didn't, and I think those turnovers honestly were. I think it proved to be something that you just live with and you're okay with because. you look at it and go, well, 21 turnovers. Oh my God, that's horrible, which it is horrible. Right. Yeah. But in the end, they ended up scoring, 1.04 points per possession, which is not necessarily lighting the world on fire, but is
better than most teams.
Better than most teams do against them. Pretty damn good for us. Yeah. And so I think what that says to me is, okay, so they had a strategy, and, if it resulted in some turnovers, they were sort of okay with that. I certainly don't think they would ever say they were okay with 21 turnovers, but they were probably willing to trade maybe a few more turnovers than they normally would be willing to be okay with for the buckets that it generated when the pass was successful. Normally that's not a good calculus, but I think the alternative against Washington, at least for us, is probably swing it around the outside and jack up a three. And that's probably just as bad as a turnover. So I think they were willing to live with that a little bit. And then of course having, Bonton, just get in heat check mode, was a lot of fun. We really missed him, as we've talked about the last couple of weeks. We've really missed his ability to create, his ability to add another scoring option besides LB. All those things make him really, really valuable, and we saw exactly why in this game. We don't win this game without him. So
absolutely do not. Like there's a good chance we get our butts kicked without him. Yep. There was obviously two runs in the game that were huge. That 10-0 run to finish the second half, or the first half, in the last 3 minutes, really kind of came out of nowhere. Again, was fueled by, started by a CJ3, and then he capped it with a steal and dunk. And just to hold UW scoreless for 3 minutes, and actually, we've talked about how they're able to play good defense, and then it's totally ruined by their own scoring drought.
Right.
But this time, they put up 10 minutes in 3 minutes is always, you're always happy with that. And so they were pretty much getting at least a free throw every time they went down. And so for the last 3 minutes, and so you obviously you were happy with the you knew it was gonna get closer, but you were happy with that first half margin. Had us feeling, in the arena, all the Coug fans, we had our chests out a little bit. And secretly we were dying inside, like, oh God, if we fuck this up, like, I don't want to walk out of here. I just want to, like, run out of here with a hood over my face. And
exactly, dude. Like the worst is when there's expectations and then it goes south, right? Like, it's like the last Apple Cup I went to in Seattle. We've talked about this game before, but it was supposed to go better than it did. And then it didn't go well, and that's the worst, because then they're talking all the shit about, you thought you were so great, chokers, and then they would say, of course, the other phrase that shall not be said, and you don't want to deal with that. So yeah, that's we're always waiting for the other shoe to drop, only it never really did.
I mean, it sort of did. Like
it kind of did, but
UW came back and took the lead.
But we've had games like that this year, though, where it's like they're doing okay, and then it just, especially on the road, it just absolutely, completely, 100% collapses.
I think it would have looked like that if they hadn't built such a big lead in the first half, because they scored like 4 points in the first 8 or 9 minutes of the second half, and
yes,
and that erased their thing, but then they built back up to a 13-point lead, thanks to that, that hot streak. Really, UW was attacking. They were drawing fouls, and it was pretty funny. We can talk about this. So UW, obviously, in that zone, it's a little harder to attack and draw fouls, especially if you're not driving the ball well. And UW has a bunch of long guys that are very pesky, a lot of turnovers, swiping the ball away from our guys,
right?
Getting in passing lanes, stuff like that. But UW was just kind of attacking more. They were in attack mode. They knew they knew they were up against the wall coming out of halftime, and so you saw that foul disparity. They were in the double bonus, I think, the last 10 minutes of the game at least. Yeah. And so it was, that had you stressed, like, man, they're just going to be shooting free throws. Thankfully, they didn't shoot free throws very well. They missed quite a few. and that was definitely helpful. Even some guys that are a little bit better percentage than they showed. They ended up going 23 of 38, which isn't awful, but they definitely were better in the second half than they were in the first. But definitely those 15 misses. Obviously, you would expect maybe be closer to, maybe hit 4 or 5 more of those, and that obviously would make a difference in the end of the game.
Difference in the game.
Yeah. When you have WSU going 23-27 in their opportunities, that's how you win a game where you have a 28% turnover rate. UW is getting 31% of their offensive rebounding opportunities. These are some things that, if you'd have told me before the game, we're like, oh man, it's going to be rough. Especially UW, and UW turned it over quite a bit, but I would have hoped for more than I thought 20%, given how much we turned it over and how much we struggled to rebound the ball. Would have been kind of all she wrote, but when you hit 7 of 19 from 3, and you hit 23 of 27, and you hit 17 of 29 from inside the arc, it all works out, right?
Yeah. Speaking of the second half, it was a really interesting game to watch from a chess match perspective. You mentioned one of them, which was, obviously UW decided, okay, look, they're going to have a hard time defending us one-on-one if we drive. And then also just the fact that the whistles just really seem to be fairly one-sided for a lot of that. But there were a couple other pieces too. Defensively, UW did a thing that I don't watch them that closely, so I don't know what they do or don't do specifically very often. But for us, because we were working that short corner and high post so relentlessly, they made this kind of interesting little adjustment where they run a 2-3 zone, but it's a matchup zone, right? So it's kind of man-to-man type principles, whatever, right? They took the lower corner guys and brought them up basically free throw line extended. It was almost a 4-1 zone. They were so high, and they really, really, really cut off those short corner passes. And they also weren't just free throw line extended. They were also maybe a little more narrow than they typically would be. And so they really kind of took away our ability to work that short corner. And that's part of why we had such a long scoring drive. We kind of had a tough time adjusting to it and figuring it out. And so there was that adjustment. Well, then once we kind of figured that out, we started scoring a little bit.
I will say I have seen them do that before. I think it's a typical adjustment for them when they are getting beat like that. But then go ahead, the final one.
Well, we appeared to not be all that prepared for it because it took us about 10 minutes to figure it out. But once we figured it out, then it took a few minutes after that. Well, then they actually went man-to-man, which was like, whoa, and the broadcast didn't even notice. The broadcast just completely blew past it.
No, they
didn't even notice, didn't mention. Well, if they did, they didn't mention it much. It may have just been in passing.
Well, no, Eddie House said UW's in man-to-man. They don't never do this, and so I would say I'll give them credit for that. I don't know if you had the volume down, but he
maybe not. Maybe I did,
because he made a point to say WSU usually plays man-to-man and they're in the zone.
Yeah, and then we went to the zone, and that's how we stopped. Cutting off their drives was playing a little zone. Well, then when they went man-to-man, the thing that I found interesting about it, and maybe House said something about this too, and I wasn't paying attention, but they were switching everything. And which is, I think, a pretty – if you don't play a lot of man-to-man, then that's probably a good way to handle it because then there's – you're not trying to communicate who's taking who. You just switch, and just – that's it. That's – no thinking, no nothing, just switch. And we really use that to our advantage. We were able to, get matchups that were beneficial. We're able to draw a ton of fouls down the stretch. by putting it on the floor and making some nice passes and just then being aggressive against that man-to-man. So really good job by our guys did a better job adjusting to their adjustment than their guys did adjusting to our adjustment, if that makes sense. I don't even know if I said that right, but we did a better job of adjusting than they did, and I really think that was the difference in the game. And after the game, I don't know how many people watched the highlight video that WSU made, but at the end, Kyle Smith is out outside the locker room with Nick Rolovich and Todd Schulenberger, who were both at the game, and Kyle Smith is just this like totally like self-effacing, self-deprecating guy, and he's like, "Oh man, yeah, you Nick Rolovich, you do all the you football coaches, you do like real coaching, you're like calling plays and doing all kinds of strategy." And he's like, "Me, I just hold up one fist for and I hold up every once in a while, I hold up two fists." And he's just like he's such a like. Yeah. His personality's hilarious because he's just like, whatever, dude, I'm just like, and it's like, no, he's actually a basketball genius, and the players are really well coached, and I think it really shows through against a team like Washington. That I'm not saying Hopkins is a bad coach, but we can all agree he has not gotten as much out of that team this year as
he's not had a good year coaching for sure.
No. Nope. So
yeah, it was pretty funny when WSU started. The average fan is not seeing this, but they switch to a man, and you're like, wow, this is crazy. They're like, it's kind of, up high, you're kind of looking, you're like, I'm pretty sure they're playing a man. And suddenly, like, they switch to a man, and we're like you said, they're switching, we're getting matchups, we're exploiting those matchups. They really went to that kind of super high post up to CJ, like the 18-foot post up, because they would switch, get CJ on a smaller guy. I would say, unfortunately, unlike the kind of penultimate play, I don't know why they tried to have CJ attract Jaden McDaniels that way. Honestly, that seemed like a terrible idea.
Yeah, but that's not really a great
switch.
You
got 6'6" Ellaby, stronger than McDaniels, 6'9". but yeah, 6'9" with like a 7'4" wingspan. Like he like Ellaby wasn't getting that shot over him. But anyway, UW was starting to get those kind of touch foul, those hand check fouls that WSU was getting at the start of the half, and the crowd is just like losing their minds. They're like, "Wah!" And it's like you're just like, well, like you weren't mad 15 minutes ago. I mean, like when WSU was getting called for touch fouls every possession. Like this is what like this is associated with playing man to man, especially if you have guys that they're used to play man to man principles, so they have some skill in that, like more than if you just had a straight up 2-3 zone. Right. But and they have some athletes that can guard. So, but still, like they were
those guys probably played man to man in high school. I mean, they've played man to man before.
And they were handsy and they were pressuring, and you're gonna get called for fouls. Like if you're using your arm, your forearm, that's a foul now. Like they don't let you do that anymore. Like it's. To like kind of that lightly push up, which if you're getting beat, you just kind of stick your forearm out there, and you can't get away with that anymore. And so they were getting fouls, and fouls were evening up to a bit, and that really was helpful because Bonton and CJ and Noah were just knocking down their free throws, and even Miller in a really big situation like WSU was struggling. They dumped it to Miller. He got it in the high post and just drove to the basket, drew a foul. He only made one of two, but it was such a big play because WSU was kind of teetering. I think UW had brought it from 63 or had brought it from 63 to 50 to 66-60. And so you kind of felt that, I felt like, oh, here we go again. They're coming back again. But then just that little move by Miller to get to the line was so huge, in just kind of tempering the run and getting that just 1 point. Then WSU got another point, another bucket to stretch it to, or I think maybe CJ hit a couple free throws. They set it to 69-60, and then you're like feeling better. Okay, it's 69-60. There's like 3 minutes left. We can do this, and obviously UW got it to within 2 at one point, and Noah Williams plays some great defense, forces a tough shot, and gets the rebound and sinks the two shots.
And by the way, after the game, who took the shot? Was it Wright who took the shot or Carter? Isaiah Carter?
Yeah, and Isaiah Carter. It was
okay.
Isaiah Carter.
After the game, he was sort of intimating that he got fouled, and I'm like, oh, no.
No, it didn't even touch it. Like,
nobody touched you, buddy.
Yeah.
They pulled the chair on you, and you were not ready for it. And nope. Sorry, buddy. So, yeah.
And again, as we talked about in the first matchup, Jay McDaniels had 19, but he took 14 shots and 6 turnovers to get there.
Yeah, the turnovers were the biggies. He was pretty good other than the turnovers, but
yeah, he was up, but he ended up with 88 offensive rating for the game. Isaiah Stewart was just bothered.
Second game we've shut him down.
Yeah, 10 points on 7 shots. He got 6 of 10 from the line, but he had 4 turnovers. A couple charges. Pollard again; those are huge.
Well, because he changes the way he plays after those.
Yep, he absolutely
did. Both
did.
games he did that.
Yeah, because he came down second possession of the game, he came down and hoisted a 3, and I just was like, oh hell yeah, do that, dude.
Yes.
It was like,
please.
Yeah, but he had 4 fouls. Like CJ had 4 fouls for about the last 10 minutes. Stewart had the 4 fouls for about the last 8 minutes. McDaniels had 4 fouls late. I don't think he got his 4th until late, but you just the job they did on those 2 guys, given that how when WC plays other teams with guys of that athletic caliber, sometimes they get shredded. But there's something about Noah's played against Jaden McDaniels or with him for forever. So has Ellaby. They both played on Seattle Rotary, so they've definitely played together. And you could just tell when Noah and McDaniels play against each other. I know it'd be kind of fun. I'm happy to see McDaniels leave and leave, not get better and be really good next year for UW. But it's pretty fun watching him and Noah go at each other.
It is.
It's just, that's fun basketball. They're jawing at each other and it's pretty cool. But hey, Noah got the best of him both times. Noah had better games both times. More efficient games, and it's just so cool to see this team where they to get hyped up and beat a UW team. Just to have it mean as much to them as it does to us is really cool. We after the game, we had a pretty sizable group. In section 10 up high, but it was kind of worked out because we were right over the tunnel where the players went in. So we were screaming for them. They were running in, and CJ and Noah hung back for a while after the game. They were doing interviews and they were doing whatever. They were talking to family and stuff. And so we just started. We were they were just kind of hanging out, but we started singing the fight song. And then they started walking in, and we were on we were doing the spell out part, and Noah spotted us, and he started doing it with us, and that was really cool. And you could just see how happy they were, and how happy we were. And, it was just it's fun to have the players kind of match your emotion with that. And and the same thing, Bonton still he had that chip on it too. Like we talked about, he's a Northwest guy. Teams like Oregon State, and UW didn't offer him, so he obviously loved playing those teams, and him. I love it, stomping on the, throwing slamming that ball down and stomping on the W. We all want to do that, man. That's great, dude. That's that's why, as you always say, man, this team is so easy to love.
Oh. The teams that are easiest to love are the ones that exceed your expectations, right? And it's not always just that they exceed your expectations, but it's the way they do it. And it's like the football team 2 years ago. It wasn't just that we didn't know what to expect. After Tyler's death and everything else, you just then to do it with Gardner and all of that and game day and everything, right? And this basketball team's kind of like that too. They just not only are they winning games that more games than maybe you expected this year, but they're doing it in a fashion that is just easy to love. They're They're spunky. They scrap. They just have a lot of the gritty qualities that we just associate with our school in general. And those are the kinds of things that make it just so easy to, to fall in love with those guys. And, Noah Williams, I mean, there's nothing that any of us love more than someone who is not afraid to stick it to Washington. And he's not afraid of anyone. And one thing I kind of love about this, you're talking about CJ and Noah and to an extent Bonton. You can, most years, if you can get those kind of, and again, this will probably sound insulting to Noah and CJ if they're listening, so please don't take this the wrong way if you listen to the podcast. But like the kind of second tier of guys out of the Seattle area, when we talk about UW football and WSU football, we don't even really have much of a chance at the second tier guys, because if Washington wants them and they've got 85 scholarships to play with, Washington's going to get them for the most part, right? But in basketball, you've only got 13 scholarships, and then beyond that, only 5 guys can play at a time. Your rotations maybe like 8, maybe 9 guys. Yeah. And so, unless you're up there, like there are compelling reasons to go elsewhere, even if you're from Seattle and even if Washington wants you. Husky fans right now are like, why don't we have CJ Ellaby and Noah Williams? And I'm like, well, it's because you recruited, these 5-star, you recruited Jaden McDaniels. Like, listen, I love Noah and I love CJ, but yeah, if coming out of high school, you were like, okay, you can have CJ Ellaby or Noah Williams or Jaden McDaniels. I'm like, please give me Jaden McDaniels. You know what I mean? And it's not, it sort of becomes this maybe, sort of disingenuous argument. But the reality is that, Washington can't take all those guys. And Washington also makes, decisions about guys are going to take. I mean, look, we'd love to have Isaiah Stewart and we'd love to have, you know what I mean? It's like we would love to have these guys, right? And if they played for Kyle Smith, I'm sure they'd be better than they are, but that's another conversation. It's like if you can pull in guys like CJ and Noah who, maybe aren't quite what UW is wanting, you can build a pretty damn good team with those guys. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing right now. And I don't know, how, which guys are sort of coming down the pike on that one, but I know that Kyle Smith wants to make inroads on guys like that, and become kind of a secondary, option for the guys who maybe, have that chip on their shoulder from not being seriously recruited by Washington. And, it sure is fun to watch guys, try to stick it back in their face and, do things like yell, "This is my city," when they sink the game-winning free throws.
Yeah, and it's so fun. Just because he's only got a couple games left, I gotta give shout out for Jeff Pollard again.
Yeah,
he was a warrior again.
Yep.
Like
again.
Defensively, he just worked his tail off. Like you didn't see Stewart get as many opportunities because UW just didn't, like, Pollard was making it hard to give him the ball. Like, he was just fighting, and
Yep.
And when Stewart did get the ball, he was making it difficult on him inside, and so and he also was huge, in that low post in that short corner, for 9 points on 6 shots. Yeah, what else do you want from Jeff Pollard? Like, he had a couple turnovers, but you kind of expect that. He's taking some tough passes, whatever. He's playing against some way more athletic guys, but he was just savvy, and he kind of stuck with what he's good at, and he played his tail off, and you can see why Smith worked so hard to keep him on the team, because he's been, especially, he's had some big games defensively, and he's obviously not going to block shots, and he's not a great rebounder, but he's a pretty damn good post defender when he needs to be, when he's not dead tired. And we thought he was, gassed, but he came out, played 34 really tough minutes, was huge in this game. And it was, again, him, Ellaby, Bonton, Williams, those 4 are really why they won this game. And just all of them had excellent games and were huge. And it was just, What a fun thing to do to to fucking win at UW. Like, it's so fun. And one last thing on the turnovers. UW apparently Chick-fil-A gives away free chicken sandwiches when UW forces 12 turnovers. So we got the win and we got the free chicken sandwiches. So.
That's right. The chicken sandwiches didn't only go to Washington fans. They went.
They were. Oh yeah, they were seeking us out and handed them to us. I got a couple of the free Chick-fil-A gift cards there.
That's fantastic. That's hilarious. I know. I saw they had the on TV. It flashed a couple times. They had the Steel's tote board there, where they were with each Steel they'd put up another number.
Yeah, apparently that was the turnovers thing, and so
was it just turnovers?
It was turnovers period, but they were really bad at updating it. Like they were very delayed on it. But yeah, there was 12 turnovers, and then it might have been steal. How many steals they have?
15.
Yeah, it could have been just steals, but they said turnovers on the little coupon, so I don't know.
Yeah,
but they were really bad at updating it, and then it just went to 12, and then it stopped. And I was wondering why, and it's because like they got to 12, they gave away the chicken sandwiches. So, yeah, thanks UW for the win and the chicken sandwiches. It's
good. I love Chick-fil-A chicken sandwiches.
WSU was just looking out for us, turning the ball over.
I hope the players got some of those coupons. No, wait, that would be a violation. That would be a violation.
I'm sure if they asked Coach to stop at the Chick-fil-A in Bellevue or whatever on the way back, on the way over to,
I hope they all just rolled up to Dick's in the bus and just like got off the bus with all their gear on and got, a giant bag of deluxe and fries.
The Wallingford Dick's just right over 45th. Go over to Wallingford and
yep. Just roll on up there on 45th and just order a bunch of deluxe and fries.
Make them run out of beef for the night.
That would be living the dream right there. Just like get out of the bus with all your Cougar gear warm-ups on and order a bunch of dicks. Like, that's great. That'd be perfect.
Yeah, that was pretty great.
Maybe Rolovich can buy them all dicks. I don't know.
Maybe he can.
Like that.
Rolovich.
He can.
Rolovich
he definitely can.
Rolovich once again bought some Cougs. Bought all the Cougs in line a beer. I saw someone say on Instagram, and then apparently on Twitter, someone said that he politely told the UW fans that he's not buying them beer. So that once again, Nick Rolovich is hitting all the high notes. I mean, he was there. Like, can you ever imagine Mike Leach going into a basketball game? Period, let alone a road basketball game.
No, I can't. Mike Leach doesn't strike me as a sports fan. As weird as that sounds, like there's some like you and I. Like obviously, you and I went to the Sounders yesterday. Like we love sports, right? We're just like weird.
Yeah, my weekend was Thursday Sounders, Friday Cougs, Sunday Sounders.
Sunday Sounders. Yeah. So, we just love sports. Mike Leach doesn't strike me as that. Rolovich does strike me as that kind of a guy, that he just thinks sports are cool. So, and I think it's, he's selling a lot of family. Like that's kind of his, seems to be his deal, the kind of way he's selling the program and building the program. And so, yeah, I mean, that's, if you're trying to sell that and build that kind of an idea, then, that's, being present at those sorts of things, I think is a way to kind of show it, and, and I'll be honest. I mean, you and I both, spent, time around athletes when we were in school, and, it was sort of football was football and everybody else was everybody else. And, it was almost like a little different world. And with the new building, I say new, it's not really new anymore, but the building, it's like, they're even sort of further separated, I think, from some of the other parts of campus. And so to kind of build those connections from one part of campus to the other is really cool. So to have, and it just worked out. I mean, I don't know that he would have traveled to the game just on his own. Obviously it worked out because, because Night with Cougar Football, both he and Todd Schulenberger were there for that. So they came over for the game. But, had the same situation present itself in years past, I doubt Mike Leach would have gone to the football games or to the basketball game. So it was really cool to like see on TV, see Rolovich and Schulenberger just, sitting there behind the bench. And I don't know, like we all think of ourselves as a big family as Cougs. So it's kind of cool when we look at, the coaches like that and they're kind of buying into that and selling that to their players as well.
Yeah. It's fun. And, it's cool, that there's this big family atmosphere going on right now, and hopefully that leads to lots of success. And obviously it has in soccer, and hopefully it can continue in football and get even better in basketball.
Yep. Should we take a break?
Sounds good.
All right. And we're back.
We are back.
We're back.
Before we get into the games this weekend, are you drinking anything, Jeff?
Coffee.
Yeah.
I just tonight was a night where I'm like, if I have a beer, I'm going to be asleep halfway through the podcast. So, as we talked about before we started recording, we've got a little bit of sickness flying around our house, and I'm feeling not sick, but a little iffy. And so I figured, we'll avoid the beer tonight. We'll have a coffee because that's certainly much healthier. So, but at least I'll be awake for the podcast. What about you?
Well, I had to go with a Seattle beer because it is Noah Williams City, after all. So it is a Coug city, of course. It's WSU's city now. So this is from Holy Mountain, which we've had on the podcast. I opened a few bottles for the spring game last year, and I don't think I've had it. I think maybe you have had another one. Maybe I have. I don't know. I've had a lot of Holy Mountain. Their Three Fates Pilsner as like a sidecar beer, as I have one right now. But this is the one I'm having tonight is Holy Mountain Black Beer, which is one of my absolute favorite beers they make. It is a whopping 4.5% dark ale, as they describe it.
Better drink that slow.
It is a beautiful beer. There is so much going on in that 4.5%. It's got a little bit of chocolate, a hint of smoke. Like it's got a little bit of kind of roasty kind of coffee, and it's got a great kind of body to it at 4.5%. It's so drinkable because it's so light and nimble, and it's beautiful, man. Like I love this beer. They only make it probably a couple times a year where they'll produce it regularly, generally in the winter. But I heard from someone that they might do it all year round, which would be fantastic. Amanda loves this beer. They got it in crowlers at the brewery right now, and I've gotten a few over the last couple weeks. Just brought them back. I know last year the beer bar near me, Beer Star, had it on tap, and apparently like a 4.5% dark beer doesn't draw a lot of crowds, so it was on tap for quite a long time, and I had many of them. So funny. I'm hoping that they got a keg of that again this year, because I would love to just keep on drinking this all the time, especially in the winter, because you get that kind of that dark beer fix without getting absolutely blitz drunk. So it's just a excellent beer. It's so good. It's so good. So I thought, hey, how about a Seattle beer? And I had a crowler of this in the fridge, and I knew Amanda, if I offered her if she wanted half the crowler, she would take it. And she'd be excited about that. And it's not so many calories because it's only 4.5%. It's basically like your a little bit more than your light beer. So pretty great. Go Holy Mountain. We've talked about them before. They're a great brewery. Had a lot to do with the uptick in quality and uniqueness and interesting beers in the last 5 years coming out of Seattle. They've played a big role in that. So yeah, Go Holy Mountain, very cool brewery in Interbay in Seattle. Go check them out, and check out Black Beer and also a lot of their other beers. Noah Williams on Seattle. I don't know if there's any Cougs that are looking to own the greater Phoenix area. But it would be real nice if they were, because the Cougs are now traveling down for a couple tough road games against Arizona and Arizona State.
Yeah. Do we have any Phoenix people that can say this is our city or this is my city?
Tucson is my city.
This is my city. Yeah. I don't know. It's Arizona's going to still present the same issues they presented last time. Scoring is a real challenge there with them. And then Arizona State, up until last weekend, had been on a tear since we had beaten them. They had won. Let me look. 7 in a row. They'd won 7 in a row, which I honestly had not really been paying attention to at all. And then all of a sudden, I looked at the standings, and I know UCLA's up on top right now, which of course Bruins fans are sticking their chest out about right at the moment, which I think is sort of funny. But
they're about ready to give up on their new coach earlier in the season already.
Yeah. They were with Mick Cronin all along. We knew he was so much better than Steve Alford from the very beginning, and it's like, get the fuck out of here. Like, come on, man. You didn't know shit. Like, anyway. So then until losing to UCLA and USC, but I saw the standings, and didn't realize that Arizona State had surged all the way up there. They were like in third or whatever at this point. So that's also going to be challenging. They haven't lost at home since losing to Colorado in the middle of January. And they are, extremely bubblicious right now. So they are needing every win they can get. They really, really need a sweep this weekend to feel really good about not just being in, but also maybe, trying to avoid the first four for what would be, I think, the third year in a row for them, right?
Yeah.
I think. So, yeah, first four, third year in a row. So, yeah, big games for them. I don't know about, we're not going to quite have the same motivation we had this weekend. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, Arizona State, Remy Martin's been playing out of his mind.
He's very good.
Yeah, he's very good. WSU did a pretty good job on him last time. They'll have to do that again. I'm not going to get too deep into Arizona. No. If WSU wins, it's going to be by some strange 3-point outburst or a ridiculous amount of turnovers. It's going to be something weird. Yeah. Arizona is just the type of team that plays a style of defense and has the athletes on offense to shut WSU down, as they did in Pullman. So that's a tough one. But Arizona State, obviously, WSU beat them the first time around, and you went through how they have come around. But obviously, one guy that gave them trouble, that gave WSU trouble, was Romello White. Because he's another one of those, maybe undersized but very athletic bigs. But really, it's going to come down to stopping that Remy Martin penetration. And that's where it helps that Bonton is back, obviously, and between him and Gervais, you hope that they. I think it was Gervais got a lot of the credit the first game for kind of making life difficult for him. Yeah. But yeah, they have they don't have a ton of shooters. They got Rob Edwards. He's Alonzo Verge gave him a little bit of trouble. He's kind of a wild card. He can go off or he can be shitty. Like, he's just all over the place. But they're a pretty interesting team. When they're hot, they're hot. When they're not, they definitely they have. It's a tough road trip to go to UCLA and USC right now. I don't blame them too much for getting that Saturday sweep.
Yeah,
that's
that might be the toughest trip in the conference right now.
Utah's
really kind of fallen off a cliff. So, yeah.
Yeah, UCLA, they're ranked 80 on Ken Palm, but they're probably playing like they're ranked 20 or 15.
I did see that it was Jordan Sperber, Hoop Vision dude, had a just sort of like individual efficiency margin by month. And I'll see if I can dig up the tweet next time you're talking, but it was basically like he took the top 25, I think, efficiency margins in just the month of February and ranked them, but then also included their efficiency margin in the previous 3 months. And like UCLA was like 100 and something, 100 and something, 100 and something, and then February was like 15 or something. Yeah. Like they are playing like a top 20 team right now. And damn it, we almost beat them too. We almost.
I know that's
so annoying. It's funny.
Yeah, because WSU was the one to beat Arizona State in like a 8 of 10 stretch or something like that, or 8 of 9 or 8 of 9 stretch, 9 of 10 stretch. And then they would have been the one team that would have beat UCLA in their stretch. They had,
damn near swept UCLA.
Yeah, if they got the last second shot that they got against Arizona State from against UCLA, they would have had that one too.
Right.
So it was it's crazy, but obviously I think WSU, at least when they had Bonton against UCLA last game, played a lot better on the road than we said. Not defensively, but offensively. Defensively was still a struggle. And that's what we worry about, but they obviously played pretty well on the road this last game. I know UW's record looks bad, but I think, as we've talked about before, they're a better team than their record looks like. But now they are what they are in their last place confirmed.
Right.
So
absolutely.
Let's talk about whatever WSU. If they got one this weekend, that would be amazing.
Oh, yeah. That'd be awesome. I mean, then you'd be, 7 wins in Kyle Smith's first season.
Guarantee a winning record in the regular season in his first season. So.
And, and potentially maybe improve you to a winnable spot in the Pac-12 tournament. So
yeah, let's talk about that. So right now, WSU sits in 9th at 6-10. They would play Cal in the first round, the number 8 team. If WSU loses out this weekend, they would fall to either 10th or 11th, which means they would play either probably Arizona, Stanford, or USC, which are all teams that they have struggled with mightily this year. Those would not be games that you would be expecting to win. It'd be even better, it's almost better if they could play one of those first 4 teams like UCLA, Oregon, Arizona State, who they've had better luck against,
Yeah.
But yeah, so that it's playing out. I know people desperately want to win that Pac-12 tournament. Well, winning a game and sticking in that 9th slot, because it's likely that Utah will lose. I mean, they are hosting Colorado, so they can't, but they are playing pretty poorly. So if Utah loses and WS finishes 6-12 and WSU finishes 7-11, then they get that 9th spot, potentially the 8th spot. So either way, it doesn't matter. They play Cal in that 8-9, and even though Cal has beat them twice, both those you feel like
I'd love a third shot against Cal.
Yeah,
I'd feel really good about
especially
a third shot against Cal,
especially having Bonton if they didn't have Bonton the second time around.
Yeah.
I honestly feel like if they had Bonton for that Pullman game, that WSU would be already at 7 wins.
Yes,
and
I concur.
Be flipped between Cal and WSU there.
I concur.
But yeah, so a win would be huge, and like if you really want WSU to win a Pac-12 conference game, it's going to be much more likely if they can stick in that 9 spot and not fall to 10 or 11, because they're going to get a really tough matchup in 10 or 11. So this is one time where you would love to see Kyle Smith emulate Ernie and go down and get some surprising results down in Arizona.
Yeah, let's do the thing we did last year. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
And just out of nowhere.
I think, Arizona's a lot better. Arizona State is about where they were last year. But actually almost exactly. They were 57 in Ken Palm last year.
Yeah.
They're 58 right now. They finished 57. They're 58 right now.
That will forever be like, that weekend will just be like forever.
How did that happen?
How did that happen? Anyway, I don't know. Yeah, I like our chances to, if we can get up there, I'd love to play Cal again. Cal's probably getting swept this weekend, although, they could beat Oregon State. I think that's possible. So, yeah, there's still quite a bit of shuffling that can go on. Washington is locked into 12th place. Too bad, so sad. Well, actually, let me rephrase. They're not necessarily locked into 12th place, but I don't know. I wouldn't imagine that Oregon State would lose to both Stanford and Cal, but you never know. Utah, again, probably likely to lose to Colorado. So could be a little bit of an interesting weekend in terms of shuffling some stuff up. So.
Well, the top of the conference is pretty interesting too. You have no team's going to have better than a 13-5 record, which is wild. I think WSU finished second with a 13-5 record once, and we're like 2 games short of winning.
Right.
So you got UCLA. We talked about them. They made that surge. They're in first, 12-5 right now. Oregon 11-5. They're hosting Stanford and Cal, because Oregon State is too. So they have a couple winnable games at home. You'd expect them to get a 13-5. UCLA is at USC. Who knows? And then Arizona State still actually has an outside shot at least tying for the conference title, which is pretty wild. So you got 3 teams up there. So it's pretty interesting at the end of the day. Kind of baffling that Arizona is down there at 9-7.
Super baffling.
At some point, you just got to think that maybe Sean Miller doesn't really have it, man. I don't know. Like I love the defense that he has, but
it has been a tough stretch. I mean, part of why they're there is, they've just lost so many close games. And we talked about this the last time around. I mean, they OT to Oregon. Now they got run off the floor by Oregon State. We all just went whatever. But then 1 point. So 1 point lost to Oregon, 1 point lost to Arizona State. They got beat pretty good by UCLA shortly after beating us, and then 3-game win streak, and then another 1 point overtime loss to Oregon. Their second 1 point overtime loss to Oregon. 9 point loss to USC and a 5 point loss to UCLA. Those 2 games on the road. So it's like those are explainable, but they're also like, at some point Arizona kind of needs to put it together, and they just, you look at, you go, okay, well, what's their most impressive win? Illinois, I guess, back in the second game of the year. Colorado, I guess, is ranked in about the same area as Stanford is too. As far as Ken Palm goes, but those. I mean, neither one of those are. I mean, those aren't like real statement wins. And when they've played, really good teams, they lost to Baylor, they lost to Gonzaga, they lost twice to Oregon, and of course, you and I go, well, those games against Oregon, those are coin flips, yada yada yada. But it's like
you got to win the coin.
You still got to win, right?
Yeah.
You can't lose 2 coin flips. You got to win one of them at least. Yeah, they're definitely struggling, and I don't know. Maybe maybe that means they're ripe for something weird. Cross our fingers.
Hopefully, yeah. I'd love some weirdness. They've been pretty much steady in the top 20 of Ken Palm all year. They haven't fallen out of it. Just because, obviously, once they got into it, they haven't fallen out of it. But because, like you said, their big losses have mostly been close. Like their losses have mostly been close, except for that one against Oregon State. But it's just so they're kind of like a better version of UW in that way, in that they have a bunch of close losses and their record looks pretty bad, but they've kind of maintained a pretty higher ranking than you would think, given that. I think in net they're still pretty good too. They're obviously solidly in the tournament. You kind of look at their resume and you're like, if it was just based on resumes, like if this was the old RPI, they probably would be a little more on the bubble.
Yeah.
But I think the net ranking gives them quite a boost. They do have a tough, not many teams can say they played, Baylor, Gonzaga in non-conference. So they have a pretty good non-conference schedule to tout, top 100 at least, which a lot of these Power 6 or however you want to say, the major conference schools generally don't have great non-conference schedules, so just having one that has a few big ones on there helps you out, and when you get that conference rating. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard anyone say they're on the bubble in any way, but maybe we can put them on the bubble with
that would be fun
with a surprise win there.
Well, and hopefully, maybe they get they're feeling a little like they're gonna have a cakewalk after beating us so easily in Pullman. So I don't know. I'll watch anyway. So will you?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Cougs, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Let's see. Oh, hey, neither one of us went tonight with Cougar football, but we could talk about that.
Yeah, it was. We were living by proxy through friends who went
And told us stories.
And then Twitter and whatever. And
yeah.
Like I said, Thursday Sounders, Friday UW, Saturday Sounders. I didn't need to drive up to Seattle another night. But yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. As we've alluded to, you said earlier, Schulenberger and Todd Schulenberger, the women's head soccer coach, and then Rolovich were in Seattle for Night with Cougar Football. And kind of the interesting thing is that Schulenberger was in town for Night with Cougar Football. So we kind of used the the English term there, or the international term, football. So you saw they had Morgan Weaver on stage, getting interviewed by Yogi Roth. You had Kyle Smith speak. So it was, I had a text from a friend that said that they were like an hour in and they haven't even talked about football yet, which really is pretty cool. Like celebrate the successes of the school. Bill Moose always said rising tide lifts all boats, but at some point you got to show the other boats, right?
At some point you got to be like, hey, look over here to the boats.
I mean, you can't ignore a team that went to the Final Four in their sport. Like that's something a WSU team has never done in the modern era. In like modern last 40 years or whatever. So it's pretty remarkable to happen, and so it's really cool that they highlighted obviously Morgan going second in the NWSL draft, and so pumping her up, making her a bit of a WSU star that she deserves. That's pretty great. And then obviously it was perfect having that UW win in Seattle right the night before. Like it couldn't be better for them to kind of showcase Kyle Smith as well.
Yeah. I think it's a really awesome strategy. I don't know how many schools where that would necessarily be a viable strategy because, so many of these schools, have a lot of, we joke, right, about the T-shirt fans. We don't have a ton of T-shirt fans in the sense that we don't, most of our fans went to the school or are maybe just like one step removed from the school, right? Dad went to the school or mom went to the school, right? It's not like most people they're not Cougar fans just because they are in proximity to the school. And so since we all sort of have, our affinity for WSU sports comes from our affinity for WSU. And, that may not be the case at a lot of other schools. And so I think, purposefully sort of trying to play into that to raise, because for example, Cougar Athletic Fund, always states, hey, we want to raise enough money to cover all athletic scholarships. Like that's their stated goal, right? Well, that means that's not just a football thing. That's a football thing, a basketball thing, a baseball thing, a soccer thing. Like, that's like all sports thing. And so if you can, the more you can highlight the progress being made across all those sports, and then you just start feeling pride for the school, pride for the department overall. I think that this is a fan base that while it still is very, very, very much focused on football and, will be forever. I mean, it's, I don't know how many people like quite understand just how focused most of our fan base is on football, but you and I have a really acute awareness of that from working for this website where we see, the traffic numbers that the football stories do versus, really anything else. Our podcast, like, gets double the downloads when a football thing happens versus anything else. I mean, it really is, that big of a difference. But, the more we can, these things don't happen overnight. And if you're purposeful about, moving in the direction of, hey, we are going to have an elite athletic department, and it's not just going to be football. It starts with football because, the old Bill Moose thing, but it's like, if we're going to get the whole thing going, we need to highlight those things as they happen and really put a spotlight on them. And, I think they've done in the athletic department, a really shrewd job, not just of, hiring good people that are doing good things across these different sports. And it's not just, so obviously soccer's, the highest performing, but, some of the other sports are doing great things too. And so the more we can highlight that stuff, I think
volleyball and tennis.
Yeah, volleyball and tennis. I think, at our particular school, this I think can really work. And I'm not sure why nobody else has really tried to do this before, but really, again, just another reason to appreciate Pat Chun for however long we have him, and be thankful that they seem to have a real purposeful strategy for fundraising, and the fact that it includes really playing on this WSU family thing. I think is a really smart direction for the athletic department. I think it plays real well to our particular fan base.
Yeah, and it must have been one of the, I kind of heard from a lot of people that the kind of Night with Cougar football program had gotten pretty stale over the years. You kind of hear the same stories of, from Mike Leach and about Mike Leach or whatever, and so I imagine that this was one of the more fun Night with Cougar football programs to attend in a long time. With kind of the uniqueness. I've also heard good things about what Yogi Roth did as well. So as the MC, so that would be really cool MC to have. It's cool that they bring him in. Obviously, very charismatic and intelligent guy. Even though sometimes they give him crap about his analysis on individual football games, he's pretty good. Yeah. So it's once again another great job by Chun. I don't want us always, we're not trying to be so positive all the time. We'll be critical where it is, but this first 3 months of the year, or 2 months and change of the year has been pretty well executed. And going back to hiring Rolovich, and if you go back to a year and hiring Kyle Smith, it's been pretty encouraging. The process they've taken and some of the way they've handled big events and everything. It continues to be a positive, and it continues to make me uncomfortable because I'm not used to these things happening at WSU.
That's right. Yeah, that's. I don't know that it'll ever feel normal. Hopefully it does someday. Like hopefully this is the new normal. I don't know. Like when he leaves, I'm going to be like, my butt's going to be clenched so tight.
Oh yeah. And it's already feeling like, oh man, like this guy is too good for other places not to go, but he didn't go to USC, so that was good.
Yeah. Well, that place is a tire fire, but so good on him. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe he loves Pullman. Maybe he wants to stay forever. I'd be okay with that.
Stay forever, Pat.
Stay forever. We'll I don't know, do a little Kickstarter or something. Pat Chun, stay forever. I don't know.
Sounds good, man.
All right. Well, good show.
Yeah, nice quick one.
Yeah.
I'm sure our listeners will be grateful.
We're out of here in like less than an hour and a quarter. That's pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have to give a shout out to one of the people I was getting beers with after the game. Rochelle and her husband Colin. Because Rochelle, she's a longtime reader, listens to the podcast. She brought up that she found one of my alternate reality posts while looking for something the other day.
Those were the best.
And any Coug fan that can pull up one of my alternate reality posts from like 10 years ago and know what they were, like, you win some points in my world. because those were some weird times, and times when I had more time to be creative. And I probably would cringe a little bit reading them now, but I was pretty proud of them at the time. my one dabble into fiction.
Well, and we needed it too. I mean, like that was as much self-preservation as anything else. Like we started the website at a time when most like mere mortals would have, thrown in the towel pretty quickly. So
yeah, I thought it was pretty funny when she brought those up. And I was like, oh man, I was pretty young when I wrote those, so, and I was apparently, and I wasn't stoned. I swear.
Promise.
I promise.
Which actually makes them all the more impressive.
Yeah, I think I was living in Tennessee at the time. So
I mean, if you were like on acid or something, then we'd be like, okay, that's alternate reality. Okay,
So if you want to indulge, just search Cougs Center alternate reality. I think they're from 2009. I think most of it. There was 4 or 5. I did. There's a story arc that gets cut off, like all good Cougs Center series. It ended prematurely.
Or did it end?
Dun, dun, dun. I don't think many of the jokes would play.
Yeah, probably not.
I think at the time we were pretty low on Todd Sturdy, and so there's a lot of digs at Todd Sturdy. And Coach Sarkisian is a big villain in the story, and then of course Reed Forrest is a cybernetic organism designed to play football. So it was very much a meta sort of thing for Cougs Center, just playing on many of our own memes. So if you're just going into it not having been a Cougs Center reader in 2009 or 2010, you'll probably be like,
sense.
what the fuck is going on right now?
I know.
But thank you, Rochelle, for bringing that up.
It is hilarious, though. Whenever I go back, I went back and looked at something old recently for some reason. And scrolling down like through the comments and like seeing the people who used to comment who don't comment anymore. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember that person. I remember that. Man, why don't they comment anymore? And then, I don't know, like people, come and go, whatever. But
they're probably still reading, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Like maybe.
I don't even comment on the site that much anymore.
I know.
I do my comments on the podcast.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, the Twitters. The Twitters are what killed us. It killed our comment section. Well, that and Slack. Like we used to, it's funny, you go back on those old ones and you see like all the authors used to comment and chat in there because that's where we did it. Like that's where we would actually talk to each other. And then slowly we kind of moved to these like ridiculous email threads on Gmail.
Oh my God, I cleared out my inbox, my Gmail inbox.
Like
and
hundreds
I found
of email
so
threads.
many of those. And they're just like hundreds and hundreds of email threads. And I'm like, how did we keep track of this?
We didn't half the time.
I know.
And now we're on Slack and it's like, okay, well now we could just whatever entertain ourselves over here. So yeah. Good times.
Sorry, we just talk to each other now. We're not going to lower ourselves to the rest of you.
I'm still there for you, loyal reader. I still go in there, unlike my elitist podcast partner.
What can I say? I'm living that good life.
What
in the
can I
Cougs
say?
Center Slack.
I live in an urban setting. I am a coastal elite.
Yeah, I am a coastal elite and in the Tacoma elites.
That's right. That's right. Me, I live in rural Graham. I'm one of you. I'm one of the commoners. You know what I'm saying?
All right, we've now reestablished our podcast personas, and I will now be the coastal elite, and you will be the rural commoner. Is that what you said? Commoner?
Yeah, the rural everyman.
Rural commoner.
I am the rural everyman.
Everyone's everyman. Jeff Newser.
I'm like the one little, teeny tiny blue dot in the middle of like a giant red area. But I do live here, so It's all right. All right. Subscribe. Right. Send us an email. Whatever.
Yeah, podcast versus everyone at gmail.com. If you want to send us an email, follow Jeff on Twitter at pod versus everyone. Follow me on Twitter at the Craig Powers. Yeah, subscribe, like, 5 stars, all that. I don't know why I say like. We're not on Facebook.
No.
But just like us. But I mean literally.
Yeah, like us. We
please.
hope you like us.
We
Please
will
like
feel
us.
the positive energy.
That's right. Please like us.
Like I'll feel it through whatever, I don't know. Every download I see pop up, I'll be like, I feel the positive energy.
Exactly. Go Cougs, Craig.
Go Cougs.